What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, we got to talk about Battlefield 6's insane start. Now, I did a video, actually, I think on Podcast Now, where we just looked at that day one, right? Just Steam and concurrent players and all that jazz. And, I mean, you can take a little bit from that, right? The first thing you, of course, don't want to take from it is concurrent players equals sales. Concurrent players is roughly maybe 20, 25, 10, somewhere in that range, right? Percentage of the overall sales. So if a game hits, 747,000, I think is close to the number. When it does that, you can probably estimate that it is done 3-4 million sales immediately. In a snap of a finger, it's done that. So the writing was on the wall that this game was doing unbelievably well, as was kind of predicted. Although, as we're about to read, I guess not everybody thought it was going to do that good. People thought it was going to do very well, but to hit the numbers that it's actually hitting, people didn't really expect that. So from Forbes here, Battlefield 6 sells 7 million copies, danger close to Call of Duty. So he says EA and DICE have now revealed that Battlefield 6 has sold 7 million copies in 3 days, a record for the franchise. Past data we have for old games is Battlefield 3 with 5 million in its first week, and then estimates of games like 1, 5, and 2042 range from 1.4 to 4.2 in around a week. So that 7 million is not just a record for Battlefield, but it's Call of Duty level launch sales, a mark that Battlefield has never reached. Modern Warfare made 600 million in its first 3 days back in 2019. Now, in the era of $70 games, this one is 490 million for Battlefield 6, except that's a low estimate given that many people bought the $100 premium version of the game instead. Activision has not been as forthcoming about sales for Call of Duty in recent years. Last year, Black Ops 6 was hamstrung by appearing on Game Pass, reducing unit sales by a significant margin. While Battlefield 6 is not passing all-time Call of Duty heights, even with incomplete data, it is likely that it's outsold at least a few generations in this last time window. The question, of course, is what happens this year with Black Ops 7, out a month from now on November 14th. In any year that does not have a Rockstar game or Harry Potter game, Call of Duty is the best-selling game of the year. But will these launch numbers match Battlefield 6's? Given that once again Black Ops 7 is releasing on Xbox Game Pass, the answer is almost certainly no. If they announce sales numbers, it will clearly have beaten Battlefield. If not, they clearly haven't. So look, some of that subjective, opinionated, I think it is a part opinion piece, right? But written from Paul Tassi, again, like on Forbes, he's a guy who knows his stuff. He gets insider scoops. He knows things. I think he honestly kind of keeps quiet on some things versus other things. So it is an opinion, but it's coming from somebody that kind of like knows the landscape of it. And I mean, you look at just the Battlefield side of it before we do the Battlefield COD inevitable comparison. That is incredible. In the fact of that he goes through all those other ones. I didn't know, Battlefield 3, I think I said before, Battlefield 3 is where I got into it, but I think 4 is my all-time. It's a legendary, all the maps and the DLC maps maybe even better than the base maps, but people forget the base maps for Battlefield 4 were next level stuff that probably still has not been beaten, to be honest with you. So Battlefield 4 clearly, is my personal favorite, but that was kind of, 3, 4, that was kind of like the golden age that at least I think of Battlefield, but it really seems like 3 was that peak. He doesn't mention 4, does he? But 3 does the 5 million, so that's very, very good, and that's close, but it's 2 million off, and they had 4 extra days to get to that 5 versus this one to get to 7. So it's really not all that close, to be honest with you. And then he goes through 1, 5, and 2042, so he skips 4, but that's a range 1.4 to 4.2. Some of them struggled. Struggled. I think any game would kind of kill to get 4 million units in a week. But okay, you do 5 million in a week and then you do 4, or you do 1.4 in a week. That is a substantial step back. Remember, EA has classically called some of these Battlefield games failures because in their head, it needs to do 10, 15, 20 million. Remember, some genius had in EA, I don't even think it's a genius online. I think it's somebody who sadly works for them. Somebody, I think, wants them to do 100 million players on Battlefield 6. That's not going to happen. Sales, I want to mention that now as well. Okay, you do 7 million in 3 days. This game is like a guarantee for like 15 to 20. Like it's gonna hit 15 to 20 million. It'll take time. I'm not saying it's gonna get there tomorrow or even this year or even next year. But when we hear closer to like the next Battlefield game, what this one did, somebody's gonna say it sold 15 to 20 million. That's incredible. But to get to 100, easy math, you got like 80 plus million to go. Now, how do you get there? I think they think the Battle Royale is what's going to get that. I cannot imagine in my entire life 80 million people playing a Battlefield Battle Royale, but maybe it happens. And I'm sure they will count. If I play it for 5 minutes and never play it again, I count. I'm one of the 80 million. So that's how they'll get those numbers higher, to be honest with you. But whatever. It is an incredibly high number. They will continue to sell. It'll do super well. So I think besides that 100 million thing, like if they were expecting it to do 10 plus, let's say kind of conservatively, I think they're going to be happy, because they were not happy for several of the last, it wasn't even just like 2042 was a failure, but even before then, even like good ones, it was either 1 or 5, because I remember, I think, being around and doing YouTube and not really covering the day-to-day news, but I remember seeing like one of them did 7 or 8 in its life, and they wanted like 12 or 15, and so like they just wanted too high. So the game did good, I think, by all metrics, but they wanted close to double, so the game failed, to EA. I don't think you'll have that issue with Battlefield 6. I guess that's the long story. And then in terms of COD, well, I always mention it. I've always said, I'll say it again here, just competition. I just want it to push COD. At the same time, like, this is more fun. This is more fun because I thought, as I've also said before, I thought this would take a while. I thought Battlefield wouldn't be able to touch, like, new Battlefield to new COD, not looking at their entire history. I thought it would still take more than just one game. I did not think that the consumer base was as willing to jump ship as they are. And honestly, I'm quite pleased with that because I hope that just means they're willing to go where good things are being made, right? If people are tired of run-of-the-mill COD and Battlefield gives them something fresh and something good and they move over, I want that. And I had just assumed leading in that Battlefield was going to do very good, but it wouldn't be able to keep up with COD, and it would maybe take a couple of these in a row. It would take COD continuing to be stagnant for a couple more years, and then the next Battlefield would be, okay, we're not just back, but we're actually ready to be not just better than COD, but sell better, be a bigger franchise than Call of Duty. I thought that would take like 2-3 years from now. It really seems like it's happening in real time. Sales are unbelievable. And yeah, I mean, we've heard the rumors of like what was the Game Pass? The rumor was that Game Pass took away like $300 million of sales just from Call of Duty. Now, that's tough, like, for numbers, for sales. That would be pretty difficult. But, I mean, if he mentions, like, 600 million, right, for the highest tier Call of Duty, right? That's the highest one it did. So 600 million back 6 years ago, and then say last year's COD just loses 300 million just off the top, just gets sliced, right? Simply because it's on Game Pass. Well, it also doesn't factor in, is it as big as it was last year as it was in 2019? Answer still no. Probably still no, right? So if it did 600 million then, did it do 450 million last year? Did it do 500 million last year? Okay, say it does that. Now you slice off 300 million because the Game Pass and I'm only saying sales because, if you take the whole 500 million or you add the Game Pass people in, and that's the tough thing, when you compare these things, like with Game Pass, can Call of Duty reach 20 million players again? And I think that's generally what they can do, maybe even a little bit higher than that. Yeah. And that number is still probably going to be higher than Battlefield. At launch, Call of Duty this year might still beat Battlefield because of that 20 million. You take away Game Pass though, and you take like pure profit of people buying it, COD might only sell 1, 2, 3 million versus Battlefield doing 7, 8, 9. So we don't really know, but again, I think like the main point and what I wanted to just contribute to this video, like, it's happening faster than I thought it would. I thought it would be more of like a long game where you'd have to prove yourself long term. You still have to prove yourself long term, but I thought it would take longer for this thing to like work out in Battlefield's favor. Turns out it took 3 days, and then it actually worked out much quicker than I thought. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.